We are in the most famous meadow in the world. This is the meadow where Julie Andrews did capital T, the twirl that was seen around the world. We are standing on private property in a farmhouse at the top of a mountain in a little village called Melweg in Bavaria, in Germany, right across the border from Salzburg. Every day for 5 or 6 days in a row, they schlepped up to the mountaintop, waiting for a little bit of sunshine. No stretch limousine for Julie Andrews. She was brought up in an oxen cart pulled by 2 oxen. On June 4th, 1964, a day that will live in Hollywood history, the weather was gorgeous and the team came up to this meadow. We had the famous helicopters zooming in from the other side.
The helicopter could only fly about an hour at a time, hour and a half. The part where we shot the opening sequence, we used that area up there as a landing pad too, off to the right of where she was singing. To be able to get in close to Julie, we had to move in very close with the helicopter. If you look at the scene in the movie, you'll see the grass blades bent over, and the backwash from that helicopter was very, very heavy. We shot that opening sequence 9 times, and unfortunately knocked Julie down 4 times. And every time Julie Andrews sees me, she says, "Don't get near me, you knock me on my bloomin' ass." Not intentionally.
About a month later, as they were finishing their almost 3-month stay in Salzburg, members of the team came back up to this meadow to film the rest of the beautiful opening number.
My heart wants to beat like
Hollywood improved on nature just a little bit. There's a beautiful brook, there are beautiful birch trees. They weren't here till the crew got here.
Those nice birch trees end about 5 feet above Julie Andrews' head.
to sing through the night.
Where she sort of jumps over that artificial pond. That was on a rainy day. That was, I think, the last scene that we did on the film.
Oh.
Salzburg has often been called the Rome of the North because it is a beautiful city of Roman Catholic churches, one more beautiful than the next. And Nonnberg is a Benedictine nunnery that has been in existence since the mid-8th century. And the real Maria was a novice at Nonnberg in the 1920s.
Nonnberg Abbey is the eldest monastery for women in the world. It's nearly the same, and the nuns are singing, praying, doing good works.
When Maria Kuchera arrived here in Salzburg, she asked a policeman, "Where can I find an abbey?" because she wanted to become a nun. And he pointed to the distinctive onion dome of Nonnberg, which can be seen from anywhere in Salzburg.
Als Maria da war, dann war die Schule damals noch.
At the time when Maria was here, the school was still very active. She did well in rearing and nurturing the children and was a good educator. She was extremely lively, perhaps too lively for the convent. When the request came to the Mother Superior from Baron von Trapp, I believe it was her calling, her fate.
When the film was being shot in Salzburg, the Mother Abbess was kind enough to allow Robert Wise and his team to film in the outer courtyard.
All we could do is get as far as the big door of the church is. But that, at least, that is the original setting and one of the most genuine settings in the film.
In Maria von Trapp's own autobiography, she tells us about the fateful day, stepping out of that protected, cloistered environment into the real world. Robert Wise has that moment in his film as well, with his Maria stepping out of the same abbey that the real Maria had 40 years earlier. Halfway up Nonnberg mountain, the road slopes almost in a zigzag style. Robert Wise realized that the sloping road right outside of Nonnberg would be great for several very important dramatic scenes. The real Maria and the captain were married here at Nonnberg in 1927.
I remember the two going up to the altar. We were happy. We loved her, you know. So we were very happy.
Also ich denke mal, erst ist es sicher die alte.
I think the long and old tradition of strength lives here in this church, in this village, along with the calm and strength from the town and its people.
Salzburg is filled with beautiful squares and fountains, and in the sequence I Have Confidence, when Julie Andrews is splashing water in a horse fountain, it's at Residenzplatz in the heart of the old city.
The Residenzplatz. I mean, this is a beautiful view. And then they had, at 7 o'clock in the morning, they have the Glockenspiel, the bells playing songs.
Well, the Residence Square was created by Archbishop Wolf Dietrich. He wanted to have an old residence and a new residence and a square in between. He removed the cemetery and created this wide open space.
This bridge between heaven and the world you can feel also on the residential square with the dome and the palace there and the unique architecture. So this is my favorite place in Salzburg.
Residenzplatz also becomes important later in the movie as a scene of great drama, when Robert Wise and his extraordinary cinematographer Ted McCord wanted to recreate the Anschluss, the German union with Austria when the German troops marched into Austria, marched into Salzburg. McCord wanted the colors to be dark and brown and somber for the powerful blood red of the Nazi banners to pop out.
The city was not pleased by the idea of seeing a couple of hundred extras shouting Heil Hitler. So they, at first, did not want to give permission. And Robert Wise said, well, okay, we can use the old newsreel and just paint it a little bit in brown. That made the city people nervous. And they decided, okay, we'll find a compromise. The compromise was found. It was acted as if the Anschluss had taken place a couple of days ago. An unarmed column was to march over Residence Square, and not more than 3 swastika flags were being mounted.
So Robert Wise has shown us Residenzplatz at a time of great joy and excitement in Maria's life. He takes us to that same spot later in the story when the Anschluss is taking over Austria. In the old city of Salzburg, there is a beautiful wall of horse paintings, recognizable to fans of the I Have Confidence scene in The Sound of Music. It's at an area that was called Sigmundplatz for many years, but if you're looking for it, it's now called Von Karajanplatz.
Sigmundplatz dates back when the bishops had to clean their horses. Today we have a car wash, and this horse was one side in and clean on the other side, outside.
The horse washing place was very close to the horse stables. The horse stables where today the festival hall is. A horse washing place still to be seen today in a Baroque style, very nicely finished. It's one of the most visited spots in town.
On Sigmundsplatz, it was a rainy day, and I only remember that we all were soaking wet.
It's also one of the few areas that we can pinpoint where a scene was filmed and cut. It's a scene where Liesl is introducing Rolf to Maria, and it's just before the Do-Re-Mi sequence, but it's significant because Liesl and Maria are having their own bonding, and Rolf, at the same time, is becoming a bit cold, a bit chilly. But I think when they were looking at the flow and the pacing of the movie, they made a tough but right decision to cut it. The real Von Trapp Villa is in a little village called Aigen. It's about 10 minutes outside of central Salzburg. It's private property now. Captain von Trapp and his family lived at the villa in Aigen from about 1925 until after the Anschluss, which was in 1938 when they were forced to flee.
Salzburg is a beautiful place. I think the most beautiful place in the world. And we lived outside of Salzburg, and we had the mountains right in the back and in front. It was gorgeous.
My favorite place is the Von Trapp family's house because it's very big and it has a very nice rooms.
We are now at the Palace of Frauenburg. Palace of Frauenburg in nowadays is part of the Salzburg Music Academy, Mozarteum.
Today it is used as a place where music students are having seminars and meetings.
It was used in the film to represent the very front of the Von Trapp villa and the very back of the villa. You see that beautiful Habsburg yellow, which is so ubiquitous in Salzburg, part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Publicity was going to send a press junket of 137 American journalists and photographers to be with us for 3 days. You couldn't very well go up Nonnberg, so they decided to have it here.
It's lovely to be on your program, directly from the set of The Sound of Music in Salzburg in Austria.
People, I think, enjoyed immensely the surroundings. When Julie is jumping about and singing, "I have confidence," the press were impressed. But then Julie is so easy, you know, and so lovely, and it's easy to be impressed by her. She did it beautifully.
But it's been a pleasure on my part, believe me.
I am a music, I suppose. And I do have the finest couturier in Vienna.
And the real Von Trapp family didn't have a gazebo in Salzburg. No problem for the great team at 20th Century Fox. They merely built their own gazebo and left it by the lake at Leopoldskron. Visitors were climbing over walls and trespassing private property just to see the gazebo. Well, the city fathers of Salzburg weren't too happy about this, so their very, very smart solution was to relocate the gazebo to the grounds of a beautiful palace called Hellbrunn.
The Park of Hellbrunn is always a place to present beautiful and exclusive things. So it is here. And the main fact is the scenery is like in the film.
Oh, we're from Singapore.
We plan to visit all the Sound of Music
sites.
Yeah, when you dance on the steps.
Yeah.
In the rain.
It is a reconstruction of the original with a lot of original in it. The walls, the side parts, the roof, of course, is new, and the foundations too. Hellbrunn is from the time of the Renaissance, some 400 years ago. They started building it in 1613. And the last 400 years of garden architecture have left their traces here. There's a beautiful big playground and a lot of space to relax.
Hellbrunn doesn't appear in the movie, but it certainly feels like one of the Sound of Music vistas. And the gazebo now lives happily ever after at Hellbrunn and has a daily, constant stream of visitors who want to pay homage. Salzburg has a beautiful river, the Salzach River, that runs through it, and there are several beautiful bridges. The Mozart Footbridge is a wonderful, charming little bridge that people walk back and forth across every day.
The Mozart Bridge, in German Mozartsteg, it's a very beautiful bridge in Austrian Art Deco style, and this bridge crosses the river Salzach. The name Salzach means Salz. Ach, Salz is salt, and Ach is one of the different German words for river, so it's the Salt River. You have to know that at Mozart's times, and even before the Middle Ages, salt was a very precious thing.
The piano orchestral sequence of My Favorite Things that is being played in that montage before Do Re Mi has a Mozart feel to it.
All right, everybody, over here.
We're on location here where the picnic scene was filmed in the movie. In fact, it's near a little town called Werfen, 28 miles south of Salzburg, with the fortress of Werfen, which was built in 1077. The property here is owned by the same family at the time when the shooting had taken place.
It's near some very wonderful ice caves. And one of the bonuses they had not anticipated were these wonderful, almost glacier-like, ancient, beautiful, beautiful rock and stone mountains around them. And so to make sure that his audience would get to see them, Robert Wise began that sequence with Kurt and Friedrich tossing a ball in the air.
It was very cold and rainy, and we waited for the sun, and we waited for the sun.
And most of the stories we hear is that they were sitting in a barn, sort of off camera, drinking schnapps. I think it was Julie drinking schnapps, not the children, trying to stay warm. But when the sun came out, they got to do some beautiful shots in the open meadows at Werfen.
Ray, a drop of golden sun.
The geography around the city made me move to Salzburg because of the quality of life. You have the mountains, the Alps on one side, and you have the Lake District on the other side. In the summer, it takes you maybe half an hour to get to a lake, and in the winter, it takes you half an hour to get to the slopes, to go skiing or mountain climbing during the summer. So this is really a perfect setting.
So, do, la, fa, mi, do, re.
Salzburg is a very small city, and across from Nürnberg, near Münchsberg, is Winkler Terrace.
Well, it's one of the postcard views. That is Salzburg.
You see the beautiful rooftops of the old city when Mozart was a boy. You see the cathedral domes and the beautiful church spires. And overlooking all of it, up on its own very important mountain, is the Hohensalzburg, the Festturm, the fortress that has overlooked Salzburg for 1,000 years.
Winkler Terrace always has been a hot spot, so to speak, in Salzburg. A man named Winkler built up there a nice restaurant with a huge terrace overlooking the old part of the city of Salzburg. Years ago, they decided to build up there the Museum of Modern Art, also with a restaurant, and has the same nice views.
It's lovingly called the shoebox because of its shape. But when visitors come there, as they look out towards the old city of Salzburg, they are recreating the view that Maria and the children have at the beginning of the second half of Do Re Mi.
You can sing most anything. Do, a deer, a female deer.
The creative team had an amazing gift for walking through the streets of Salzburg and instinctively picking out vistas perfect for the film. And there can't be any greater example than looking through Mirabell Gardens.
Mirabell Gardens offers you a wonderful view to the old part of the city, and you are very close to Mirabell Palace, built by the Archbishop Wolf Dietrich for his girlfriend.
What I enjoy most about Mirabell Gardens, throughout the year, it changes constantly with the flowers, with the atmosphere, with the light. It's really one of the most enjoyable places here in the city of Salzburg.
People that get married walk in there and get a photograph with the cathedral and the fortress in the background.
It's 1 block long, and yet every inch of it is packed with beautiful flowers and statues.
And it's a beautiful atmosphere. If you come early in the morning, there is the arch, the Pegasus fountain.
Ray, a drop of golden sun.
The children stayed at the Park Hotel Mirabell, which is now the Sheraton, the Salzburg Sheraton. And I think they did it because it's a nice, quiet ambiance, and they had a nice large room for them where they were given their lessons.
These stairs, this is where it become very popular. And we have sometimes families arriving here in the hotel, they're not asking for the room number, they're asking for the stairs from the Sound of Music.
We are told that when Mark Bro and Dee Dee Wood, the choreographic team, were walking up those steps, Dee Dee said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti.
So, do, la, fa, mi, do, re.
It took a long time for just a short sequence in the film. But I think it's one of the most important, especially showing the beauty of the city. We are here on one of the most important settings landscape-wise for The Sound of Music. You saw this shot from the other side in the film.
We are now at the world-famous Palace of Leopoldskron, which was built 250 years ago by the Bishop Firmian, and later on it was owned by Max Reinhardt, one of the founders of the Salzburg festivals.
All of the lakeside scenes were filmed on the grounds of Leopoldskron. The house itself never appears in the film. Visitors to Leopoldskron always see the beautiful stone horse statues down by the lake, but in another case of Hollywood magic, those stone statues of horses are not actually the ones in the movie. They have stand-ins. About 300 feet down the lake, Boris Levin built replica statues of horses and a replica pathway, and that's where they filmed a lot of the sequences that we know. But when you see the real ones today, it all mixes together.
Inside the Castle of Leopoldskron, there is this so-called Venetian room. No wonder Hollywood people said, well, we're going to use that for the film, copied it, photographed it, and rebuilt it in Hollywood.
Around the time of the filming of The Sound of Music, Leopoldskron was known as the Salzburg Seminar. It was used for, as a think tank, really, and American-based. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy actually leads seminars there every summer, so there's still that very strong American-Austrian connection.
Leopoldskron, of course, is fabulous. We couldn't miss that, you know.
High on a hill was a lonely goat herd, lay, hoodlay, hoodlay, hee-hoo.
The idea of having a marionette production in The Sound of Music was inspired by the creative team visiting the world-famous Salzburg Marionettes, established in 1913.
The traditions are very, very strong. The granddaughter of the founder is the artistic director of the theater.
We did start it with fairy tales and Punch of Judy plays, and we go more and more to the operas, to the Mozart operas, and we did play them in the whole world. And they did ask us if we do the marionettes for The Sound of Music's little scene, and we had to say no, sorry, because we go on tour to the United States in this time, so we couldn't do it.
The Bill Baird marionettes came in instead to do the marionette portion, but the Salzburg Marionettes decided to let life imitate art and thought they would do a marionette production of The Sound of Music, working with the great American director Richard Hamburger.
Before The Sound of Music, they had done primarily the operas of Mozart. They had these large gestures, strides across stage in classical ways, bowing. So part of what I did that was different was work with the puppets directly as if they were actors.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
When Maria is alone on the mountain, we made the mountain animate. You want to be able to defy gravity. You want to do all the things that as a theater director you've longed to do but haven't been able to.
What's very important are the eyes of the marionettes. So they can look at people, and with the movement of the head, the audience think the mouth open.
To laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over stones in its way.
We have done it in Bahrain, in the Arabian. At Christmas, we have 4 weeks in Paris doing Sound of Music. My grandfather was always very artistic, and I think this is the foundation of the theater, that it was always artistic, the whole century long.
And I'll sing once
The Sound of Music Company arrived in Salzburg in April of 1964, and the first scene they filmed was certainly one of the biggest and most important. It was the wedding scene, filmed at a beautiful church in Mondsee, about 40 minutes outside of Salzburg.
The real wedding took place in Nürnberg Abbey, which was not possible to reproduce in the film. So they moved to Mondsee, which is a very big and nice church, and I guess it's also better for filming.
It is probably the oldest cloister in Austria and was established as a Roman church in 748. What you are seeing here today is the quite beautiful House of God, established in 1500. You see above you the statue of St. Michael, the guardian of our church. As the story has been told, he was traveling over the mountain with his followers, and he very nearly had a bad fall. Misfortune would have happened had the moon not risen, but the moon rose, and there was no accident. Therefore, it is known as Mondsee, Moon Lake.
Mondsee is where the local people go there in summer for swimming. There's the beautiful lake. It's a recreation area for the citizens of Salzburg.
A few days before they filmed their Maria and Georg wedding, Robert Wise and some members of the production team came just to an actual wedding that was being held in the church to kind of pre-scout for the wedding they'd be filming just a few days later. Anyone who steps inside the beautiful church at Mondsee has their breath taken away by how lovely it is. For cinematographer Ted McCord, his breath was taken away when he realized he was going to have to light this thing, and he lit it beautifully. The church is filled with light during the wedding scene, and yet he hid lights in the most amazing crevices. He really figured out a way to do it so artfully.
The people of Mondsee still remember those days that they've never seen their church lighted so beautiful as when the film people came in there.
The Rock Riding School is so dramatic, any director would want to film there. And in fact, William Wyler, who was at one point going to direct The Sound of Music, visited the Rock Riding School and he said, we should actually film the festival scene here.
The actual Von Trapp family performed here, gave a performance here in 1935.
Max Reinhardt, the great theater producer, created the Salzburg Festival, which is a very, very famous arts festival to this day.
Max Reinhardt said there must be an end to killing and to the horror of war, and the future is in culture.
It was his idea to take the Rock Riding School, a nobleman's stables in the 18th century, and restore it into some sort of a performing space. It's worth noting that Max Reinhardt may have been an inspiration for the name of Max Detweiler in The Sound of Music.
Salzburg, in particular during the summer months when the Salzburg Festival is on, is really an international town. You have to remember, Salzburg is a rather small city with only 150,000 inhabitants. But during the summer, the city really comes alive.
Ernest Lehman, the screenwriter of The Sound of Music, had in 1959 written a screenplay for North by Northwest, a Hitchcock thriller with one great chase scene after another. They're gone! He had a great idea to have a dramatic chase scene at the festival. As soon as the Nazi soldiers realized that the Von Trapps have escaped, he wanted to show soldiers leaping down these very dramatic stairs. I think they looked into it and realized logistically and dramatically it probably didn't make sense.
It was a night shooting. It was difficult. Up on Mönchsberg there are many houses and villas, and of course important people live there, and they complained about the noise.
Robert Wise asked me to inform the extras to join in singing Edelweiss. And I had to tell Robert Wise that we first have to teach that song to the people because it's Rodgers and Hammerstein. It's a beautiful song, but nobody knows it here.
Oh, Reverend Mother, we didn't realize we'd put the Abbey in this danger.
Where we are right now is St. Peter's Cemetery. Is actually the founding place of Salzburg, dating back to 696. St. Rupert was our founder. He was the Bishop of Worms in Germany. He was sent into this area to do some missionary work, and he founded Salzburg on the Roman ruins of Juvavum. You see behind me up there the catacombs where the Christians were hiding from the Romans. It's similar to where the Von Trapp family was hiding behind tombstones.
Production designer Boris Levin was clearly inspired by the grille work and a lot of the very beautiful cemetery here at St. Peter's Church when he designed the cemetery sequence for Nürnberg Abbey.
St. Peter's Cemetery was not actually used in the film, but it was used as an inspiration for the set that was made up in Hollywood.
The Abbey is one of the most interesting sites to see. A very beautiful Baroque style church and a very unique cemetery still in use today with very beautiful finished crosses at the graveyards. And you can sort of follow the history of Salzburg in this cemetery.
Our father and Uncle Max are going to push the car all the way to Switzerland.
The Sound of Music is always a blending of fact and fiction. Switzerland is about 250 miles away from Salzburg. Salzburg, Austria actually straddles the border with Germany. And the mountain at the end of the film is actually leading them right over the border into Germany. In fact, it's taking them perilously close to Berchtesgaden, to Hitler's Eagle Nest compound. I always like to say, when you leave it up to the dad and he doesn't ask directions, you're going to get in trouble.
The scene was filmed on what is called the Rossfeld, which is also in Bavaria, and straight across from the Eagle's Nest. It's 5,000 feet above sea level. The mountains behind it are quite magnificent, and the little walk over the hill there is quite dramatic.
I need your tickets for the Sound of Music tour, please. Welcome aboard.
The Sound of Music was filmed in Salzburg in 1964. And within a year or two of its release, in addition to people asking about Herr Mozart and asking about Stille Nacht, Silent Night, and other historic legacies of Salzburg, there was an immediate appetite for a Sound of Music tour.
We are from Sweden and we are a big fan of Sound of Music.
I've seen it quite many times.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're just approaching Leopoldskron, the palace you can see across the lake.
We are doing the Sound of Music tour over 30 years, and our company was involved in 1964. Our little minivans were driving around the crew and the stars.
Panorama Tours knew better than anybody where the movie had been shot around Salzburg. So Panorama started the first and oldest and most successful of the Sound of Music tours.
Panorama has shown, I don't know how many thousand visitors, the best sides of Salzburg and certainly also Sound of Music.
The palace was built in 1736 under Archbishop Firmian. He built it as his residence. He had a man-made lake established just behind it.
Today we had people from nearly all over the world. We had people from Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, the United States, England, and even from Brazil.
We are from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We are really fond of the picture. It's a very famous picture in Brazil.
My favorite character is Gretel. She's quite good at dancing and she has a nice dress.
Every year we have around 30,000 people doing the original Sound of Music tour. We have a very close relationship to the family. I go and see Maria von Trapp nearly every year for her birthday. Christopher Plummer was invited to the Salzburg festivals. And later on in 2000, we had all the 7 children back in Salzburg.
Decades after the film was shot, Panorama Tours sometimes does several full busloads a day of Sound of Music tours. It is an extraordinarily wonderful and fun way to relive the Sound of Music with a group of fellow Sound of Music fans. You're singing the Sound of Music songs on the bus, and every time you look out the window, the Sound of Music movie is surrounding you 360.
We do hope to see you again sometime. Thank you. Dankeschön.